Solipsism is one of the most terrifying theories in the world. What makes it so horrifying is the fact that you can't prove it's fake. And yet, what is solipsism? The idea that there is just one thinking mind, yours, dear viewers who is listening to this, is known as solipsism. Everything you see, hear, and encounter is only a reflection of your thoughts and the products of your imagination.
Alright, so into this video, as it's probably mentioned in the title, I'm going to be covering the concept of solipsism. I'm not really sure how I'm going to title this video, but I had some questions lately about this quote-unquote solipsism, and these questions were coming back to back, one in a video where I talk about the live review in Near Death Experiences, and the other one in a video where I talk about the observer effect in quantum physics, and how when there is an observer, the quantum world sort of solidifies, and the way particle duality collapses into physicality and creates the reality that we're used to. And the questions were around the lines of, well, does this mean that solipsism, the idea of solipsism, is real? Does it mean that, and at the core of these questions, and this concept has come up before, that there's some sort of a slight fear, even if subconscious, a slight discomfort with the concept that only our mind and only our consciousness exist, and everything is some sort of an illusion. And this comes in the age where we talk about the matrix, where we talk about the holographic universe, and this idea of the bill of Maya, that everything is an illusion, and we're living in some sort of sometimes people like to call it a quote-unquote simulation. So I think addressing the topic of solipsism is really important. Now, one of the things that the way that I answer this question is is solipsism the final truth? Is it the underlying truth of everything? My answer to that would be yes and no. It's complicated, but it's attacking the concept of solipsism allows us to get so much closer to what might be really going on, and it might be the key to the biggest existential issue. So I decided to make a video on this because I'm sure that it'll keep coming up, especially now that it started as a philosophical issue, but now we have evidence and scientific research that is showing that this quote-unquote solipsism, or at least some form of it, some part of it, might be a real thing. Alright, so I'm going to be covering this article. I'm going to come back to it in just a second, but first I think we should define what solipsism is, or at least try to. I'm going to start with Wikipedia. I know that a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with this site. They say that there's nothing here, this all nonsense, but this is the basic mainstream idea, that people have on a certain topic. You can find it on Wikipedia. I'm going to go through Merriam-Webster as well, but just as an idea, solipsism is the philosophical idea that only one's mind is sure to exist. As an epistemological position, solipsism holds that knowledge of anything outside one's own mind is unsure. The external world and other minds cannot be known and might not exist outside the mind. So, as I said, this is a philosophical idea that came about, that what if only my mind is the real thing and everything else is an illusion, everything else is some sort of an existential dream. So solipsism comes from solus, alone, and ipse, self, the self alone. I am all that is. So this idea is attributed mainly to René Descartes. The failure of Descartes' epistemological enterprise brought to popularity the idea that all certain knowledge may go no further than I think, therefore I exist, without providing any real details about the nature of this I that has been proven to exist. So this I is an existential problem of consciousness. It's the idea of I think, therefore I exist. And this has been interpreted in different ways, but at the end of the day, it talks about consciousness. I am conscious of myself, and I exist. Latin, cogito ergo sum. This is one of the famous phrases from René Descartes. Alright, so if we go to Merriam-Webster, basically is a theory holding, solipsism is a theory holding that the self can know nothing but its own modifications, and that the self is the only existent thing. Also extreme egocentrism. I find that quite peculiar. A little bit of another note on Descartes, French philosopher René Descartes, can be blamed for the idea that if one whittles away beliefs about which one cannot be certain, one will eventually land at the existence of the self as a singular certainty. So, as I'm going to be going further into this article, we can think about this problem of solipsism as very close and very related to the big problem of consciousness, to qualia. Only my idea of the universe is what I can experience. I cannot explain anything else. So, okay, let's just go into it. Alright, so this article is in September 2020. I'm not really a fan of. It goes into a lot of avenues that I'm gonna be skipping throughout. But it does bring some very interesting and fundamental issues that I want to cover. So mainly the title here is, how do I know I'm not the only conscious being in the universe? How do I know that everything else that I interact with is real? The solipsism problem, also called the problem of other minds, lurks at the heart of science, philosophy, religion, the arts, and the human condition. This is important, the human condition. There is a biologist saying that he has solved the human condition somehow. I will cover that in a future video. This is what we're trying to figure out with consciousness. What is and how do we solve or further the human condition? So philosophers call it the problem of other minds. You experience your own mind every waking second, but you can only infer the existence of other minds through indirect means. Other people seem to possess conscious perception, emotions, memories, intentions, just as you do, but you cannot be sure they do. The only way that you can know of the other people's expressions or feelings or ideas is in the way that you communicate with them. This communication can be verbal, this can be through art, this can be through different means. And this is why art is so important. Art and expression and movies and literature and all of these things is looking into another person's world. And when you feel connected, you feel that connection, you feel that you, some people use the word resonate with the ideas of other person when you're listening to a song or when you're reading a book or even in a blog or a forum. You can understand that that feeling of feeling related or relatable to another person, you can see yourself or your feelings or your ideas in another person. That is the way that you can understand their emotions, their ideas. So this strikes at the core of the problem of qualia. The big problem of consciousness, in a nutshell, is that nobody else can feel what you do. Nobody else can see your mental images. You cannot explain what is the taste of chocolate. These abstract things that we cannot explain. And I've been talking about this for on and on and on. I even have a scientific research saying that consciousness cannot be found nowhere in the brain. What you find in the brain are neural connections. And I made a short about this, kind of went a little bit viral, going into the idea of what happiness is. What exactly is happiness? Is happiness a set of neural connections, correlations, or happiness is what you feel, the experience, being happy, being, and where is happiness? Where is it? It's not the neural correlation. This is the physical aspect of happiness, but happiness itself is an abstract concept that exists most likely in a metaphysical realm of existence, which we're barely tapping into. Where exactly is it? Where are the mental images? We don't know. This is the big problem of consciousness, the big problem of qualia. And now, if I'm having these experiences in my own mind, how do I know that other minds are real? I cannot know because I don't have access to them unless they tell me about it, or unless I listen to a song or read a book or watch a movie and learn about their experiences. There's no other way for me to know about this. I cannot have direct experience of their consciousness. This is the problem of solipsism, and this is the problem of qualia. Now you can see how related it is, and this is just a purely philosophical issue until we get evidence of it. And now when you go into the research of altered states of consciousness, where people are saying in near death experiences, for example, that they felt what others felt, and they could understand the thoughts of others while they were outside their bodies, then things start to get very serious, and you start taking this idea of solipsism to the next level and start to wonder, is this a real thing beyond a basic or a quite of a weird philosophical posture? Alright, so the article goes forward. The solipsism problem towards efforts to explain consciousness. I do not agree with this. I don't think that it thwarts the efforts to explain consciousness. Rather, it enhances the conversation and it gives it another perspective, as I'm saying. And now, when you think about the basic idea of consciousness that people are coming up with, yes, of course, it makes it a little bit more complicated. But when you go deeper into it, it's quite different. So what he's talking about here is scientists and philosophers have proposed countless contradictory hypotheses about what consciousness is and how it arises. Panpsychists contend that all creatures and even inanimate matter, even a single proton, possess consciousness. Now, this is a big thing right here. This is something that I've been working on with the idea of the concept of a soul. What is a soul? What it's all about? When you think about what we are, and I made a video with just refuting an idea from Sabine Hossenfelder when she was talking about from a purely materialist perspective, saying that all we are is a cluster of subatomic particles that create life. So now my questions and my argument is, what is the intelligence that conducts, that leads these subatomic particles to create something as complex as a human being, let alone a human being, a crab? Think about bacteria, think about the cycles of the universe. And I talked about this in the concept of intelligent design. I made a video about this. I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen. So when I talk about intelligent design, I do not speak about any religion or any Abrahamic idea. I talk about a basic fundamental nature of the universe, which leads these subatomic particles into creating worlds, cycles, animals, everything that you can imagine, nature, fruits, vitamins, everything that you can imagine, it creates it. Is this random, like a lot of people would say? No, there's intelligence behind it. Do we understand this intelligence? We do not understand this intelligence, but there is evidently intelligence behind it. So it says here, hardcore materialists insist conversely and perversely, he says, it's interesting how he conceives this, that not even humans are all that conscious. It ties into some other idea saying that there's a bunch of NPCs in the world and so only some of us are conscious, but I don't think this is what this is relating to. But in any case, so okay, when you think about solipsism, does it thwart efforts to explain consciousness? No, I think it enhances it. So when you think about from purely a philosophical perspective, of course, it seems random, it seems weird. When you're thinking about the, according to the scientific consensus statement for the future research of near death experiences, I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen. I made a video about it. This is research. This is scientific research. This is no longer speculation. This is no longer just thinking about it. This is no longer just philosophy. This is scientific research from hundreds of millions of reports of near-death experiences, where some of the basic features that people are experiencing are that they go outside of their body and they feel what other people felt. They hear other people's thoughts. They are not a corporeal entity. They become something else, and they can tap into the ideas of others, which they later confirm that they were real, they were accurate. So when you think about that, you think about the solipsism problem. Is it that only I exist, or how, if my mind can connect with all these other minds? Maybe my mind is not a thing. Maybe my mind and their mind are connected in some sort of web network. And when you think about some of the research on past life reviews and quantum hypnotherapy and so on and so forth, where people are going into past lives and so on and so forth, then you can see that this self-experience of reality, this inner isolated experience of the ego, is not isolated to one body or to one life. And even in these near-death experiences, you can know that everything might be connected. So there's what solipsism problem comes about. It's not, I think in a way it evolves the solipsism problem to not only be isolated to your ego, but to be this one mind, your mind, or expanded in the whole and the entirety of the universe. When you go into the research on entheogens and on psychedelics, what you find is that people say that they became animals. They went into the mind of the cow or an insect, and they felt what life is like through the eyes of a bee, for example. They have these experiences and they are reported on and on and on and on and on. and then they meet beings of light or beings that are geometric shapes, and these beings communicate to them that they are not who they think they are, and everything is connected and everything has consciousness behind it, and so on. And it goes on and on and on into very convoluted existential ideas that I'm not going to be going further into. But if you go to the research, it's all there. Go to my channel and go into ongoing research or pragmatic philosophy. I got a playlist with all of these things, with scientific research and all these reports and so on and so forth. Because it is a paranoid but understandable response to the feelings of solitude that lurk within us all. Even if you reject solipsism as an intellectual position, you sense it emotionally whenever you feel estranged from others, whenever you confront the awful truth that you can never really know another person, and no one can really know you. Now, this idea of existential loneliness, especially now that there's a lot of statistics of people feeling more isolated than ever, which comes a bit strange now that we can connect with practically anyone in the world, but you still feel that your own idea of the world is completely isolated from everyone else. So when people go into these altered states of consciousness and they experience this idea where they can connect to other beings in a even telepathic way, and they feel this quote-unquote love, and they feel this idea that they've been together for eons and so on and so forth, it comes as a huge surprise. And all of this existential loneliness, you can see that in our current human experience, we have this existential loneliness, and at the core of the human experience, we have this extreme desire of connection, of relating to others. And this is why we have all these social issues, where it seems to be a natural part of humans to conglomerate and to become some sort of a high mind. And you can think about what happened in the 1940s and 30s with the authoritarian movements and this idea, these blobs of people going with the mob, going with the idea of belonging to a state. You think about the issue of gangs in cities, and why is it so appealing to young people to join a gang, or to join, or to feel to root for a sports team? Why is this part of the nature of the human being versus the idea of the individual? You say a human can be rational on his own, a human can be okay on his own, but as soon as he becomes part of the mob, then it becomes dangerous, because it becomes like a hive mind. This is part of our nature, and I think a lot of our current issues in society is that we have approached our concept of individuality in a wrongful manner, and the avenues to become part of something larger usually turn negative, because it leads us to these gangs, to this mass hive mentality that suppresses the individual nature of humans. So we can see here the problem of existence, and I'm going to be writing about this in the future, because I think this is the biggest problem in existence and the biggest problem of God. I made a video named The Loneliness of God. I think this is what the game is all about. It's about creating an individual, while our most basic and fundamental nature is collectivism, because we are part of one larger being. But we are playing, it seems that we like this game of becoming individuals. So you can see where the root of the whole problem emanates from. All right, so it goes and it touches upon something very, very interesting here. Religion is one response to the solipsism problem. Our ancestors dreamed up a supernatural entity, how he's referring to religion, dreamed up a supernatural entity who bears witness to our innermost fears and desires. No matter how lonesome we feel, how alienated from our fellow humans, God is always there watching over us. He sees our soul. He's talking from the Abrahamic conception of a God. He sees our souls, our most secret selves, and he loves us anyway. Wouldn't it be nice to think so? it dreamed up our ancestors, because our ancestors are dumb, right? They couldn't understand things as we do. We're all of our technology, that we're at the brink of destroying ourselves. But our ancestors are dumb, so they dreamed up a supernatural entity. Okay, let's break this up. So, is it really that they dreamed this up? Now, of course, I mean, this is 2020. If you want to remain unaware of the research, I mean, you're doing a disservice to everyone because you are writing on a public forum. But in 2020, you should be acquainted with the literature on this. As I said, according to the research, hundreds of millions of reports of near-death experiences were one of the key items that happens. And not only in near-death experiences, and as I'm going to be going further along this research, featuring some of the STEs as well. I've had people write on the comments on my channel and sharing their STEs and saying the same thing. It's real. It's a real thing that happens. Basically, what happens is that people get to a point in their near-death experience after feeling what others felt, after being outside of their body, after traveling through the cosmos and going to other planets to see how other beings experience life. They meet this light, or they go into a realm of light, or they become a light, and they feel that they are part of something else. They feel this quote-unquote a love that they cannot explain. And this is the idea that these ancestors dreamed up, that he loves us anyway. So they feel this love. What they say, and I'm just coming back, going into my mind, going into that experience that someone shared, which I really liked. In one of my videos, he shared that it's out there. I don't want to bring it up right now, but it just resonated to me so much because he used certain words that I've seen in other experiences. So he said that he was asleep and he went through the cosmos, he went up, and I literally, I have met people who have told me this in real life when they had this experience, that they shoot out through the cosmos and met a light, and they felt quote unquote naked in front of this light. There's nowhere to hide anything to this light, but this light is not judgmental. This light is loving. This light is embracing, and this light knew everything about them, every single thing about them, and everything was out in the open. And even things from other lives came about, and all the lives that have been lived, all the experiences of reality were inside this light. Everything was there, all the information, the databases I've been talking about. We're living in a matrix of information, so this database contains everything. This is not something that our ancestors dreamed up. We're talking about this being a reality that our ancestors perhaps felt and wrote it in their own terms through their own cultural filter. But you have to be acquainted with the research, and you have to be acquainted with the reports before you go on a public platform and start writing about this and just undermining things of this nature. Okay, so this article goes into something really interesting. Love, ideally, gives us the illusion of transcending the solipsism problem. You feel you really know someone from the inside out, and they know you in moments of ecstatic sexual communion or mundane togetherness while you're eating pizza and watching the alienists say. You fuse with your beloved. The barrier between you seems to vanish. So this idea of love. Now he's talking about love between romantic partners, between as of a marriage, in more of a romantic sense. However, when you go into the research, you find this idea of love. And now this is just to do a little bit of a parenthesis here. It's a pretty sad thing, I find it currently, that this idea of love is barely gone from our current reality, from current society. Marriages are going down. The idea of marriage is mainly about some sort of a transaction, some sort of an agreement on how to raise children. And this idea of love romantically has faded from the human experience with ideas Ranging from misogyny to radical feminism, the current situation between human relationships is at a very poor state, which I find it quite interesting because this conception of romantic love, in a sense, could be, as he says in this article, an ideal way to overcome this problem of solipsism. And now going again back into the research, back into what I'm talking about, on a larger scale, the concept of love does transcend this idea of solipsism coming together. Now, why is this important for me from a research standpoint? Is because, as I said, when people go into these altered states of consciousness, what they realize is that love is everything, and love is the most fundamental nature of reality. Love is why all of this is all about. So one of the things that I wondered about the altered states of consciousness, and that has puzzled me, is why love? Why is all seems to be about love? And when people go into the Near Death Experience and they have this live review on specifically how they hurt others and how they related to each other, and they are being told that what they accomplish in their lives, their careers, and all of these things are nice, sure, but they're not really important to what the purpose of life is. The purpose of life is the interaction with other people. So one of the things that I wonder about is, why is this emphasis on this specific a part of life? And it doesn't seem to be a part of life. It seems to be the core of the life experience. And now when I've been doing these videos lately, and I made that video featuring the first EEG on a dying human brain. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen, and it talks about how scientists believe that it is this brain activity at the moment of death and after death, up to 10 minutes, according to the last research that I published. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen again. There's two of them. This is a bunch of them. So every pertinent link is gonna be below as well, so you don't have to pick through them if you are interested in any of this. But in any case, what they're saying and what scientists are procuring is the idea that these brain waves, this brain activity at the moment of death and after death, up to 10 minutes, as I said, and in some cases it's reported longer. And in some cases, there's no brain activity at all, like the case of Pam Reynolds, where people are suggesting all these things. Pam Reynolds had no brain activity at all, and she still had an out-of-body experience. And she explained everything that happened in the place where she was being operated. She explained the thoughts of the doctors around them. And you have neurosurgeons on camera saying there's no way that she could have known this. What we're talking about here is something that we cannot explain. You have them explaining this on camera, and there was a documentary about this. But in any case, I'm going to be covering Pam Reynolds in the future because it's part of the book that I'm currently writing. But in any case, as I'm saying, why would the brain, with the way that the brain is, let's say, coded, let's use the word coded, why would it care about our relationships to others? And it says that it brings about the memories because it activates the memory part in the brain. Yeah, perhaps because that's a mechanism, but why would the brain do this at all? It doesn't make any sense. And it's not the brain. There seems to be something larger going on here. As I've been saying, in the case of Pam Reynolds, there's no brain activity. And she still had a regular daily experience where she met some people on the other side of the pill and so on and so forth. So why is this emphasis on the relationships to others? This is the core problem of solipsism. It seems to be, as I said before already in this video, this seems to be the core issue of reality. It's the loneliness of, let's call it God, if we are parts of God. It's the loneliness of God, the loneliness of the conscious self existing on its own, and then it created other beings with the same abilities as him. And this is so when people say that they see their dead relatives, and there are all these fringe theories suggesting that these are not their dead relatives, these are actually evil aliens portraying, or evil demons portraying themselves as the relatives and trying to share a message, perhaps. But at the end of the day, what's all of this? Everything is in the one mind. All the information of the dead relatives is in the one mind. Is it them? Is it not them? Is it a fake copy of them? what are we talking about? If you go into some of the ideas of Thomas Campbell, this is a NASA physicist, ex-NASA physicist who is a student of consciousness, and he talks about his out-of-body experiences and some of the research he's done, and he's saying that everything is a computer simulation. So all of the information is there. So when people see their relatives, and I don't agree with everything that Tom Campbell says, but he says that it's basically consciousness, which is in everyone, which is part of everyone, is pulling out the information of those relatives and bringing it forward. And he's trying to send a message to you. He's trying to comfort you because it's useful to comfort you. I don't think that this is... He sees this from a scientific perspective. I don't think it's a simulation. I don't think it's anything. I think in the first place, who we are and who we meet as our parents, as our as he talked about here, and I'm just gonna read it to bring it a little bit of context. Inevitably, however, your lover disappoints, deceives, betrays you, or less dramatically, some subtle biocognitive shift occurs. You look at her as she nibbles her pixie and think, who, what is this odd creature? So this is talking about what is the other. In the first place, the other is part of the same mind, which recreated multiple minds, but everything is together at the same time. When you go into what Jesus said, he said, you and I are in the Father, and the Father is in I, and I am in the... Everything is together. It's not that when people go into the afterlife and they see their parents just reverting to when they were 30 years old in the best place of their life. Not that they do not exist and this is some sort of imagery. It's that if you want to see it in a way, they never existed in the first place, and neither do you exist. You don't exist, they don't exist, and you do, and they do. But it's all part of the same energy and essence. When you connect to the all, to this blob of light that people are reporting that has everything in it, how could your aunt or your niece or your father or your mother or your loved one or your pet, for that reason, people go into quote-unquote heaven and they see their pets just roaming, how could they be outside? How could they be their own outside of the whole if the whole is all there is? This explains a lot why people see that relatives in their near death experiences, why people see Jesus, why people see other religious figures. Is it consciousness just trying to tell them something through something they understand as a parent or as the relative? Is it that they do not exist? Or is it that all of it is together and they do exist? Everyone exists, everything exists, every piece of information exists in this larger database. And if reality, the ultimate reality is not physical, but more related to what we call imagination, and we can create these realms of mental energy, as William Bullman says, who is part of was part of the Monroe Institute, and he's an adept in out-of-body experiences and how to trigger an out-of-body experiences. All of this is part of the Robert Monroe, the Monroe Institute of Thomas Campbell, as I said, ex-NASA physicist, and the CIA documents, which were, I meant to say, I'm gonna cut that part. The agency, the governmental institutional agencies documents, which were leaked, and they talk about this holographic universe, about this hologram, this illusion universe, that everything seems to be a hologram. You can traverse this hologram and be outside of your body. All of this comes from the same institution, from the same research. So all of this goes together. So it's not that the other people do not exist, it's that they are all on the same. We are all part of the same thing, and we can imagine everything that we're experiencing. So in a sense, I guess what I'm getting at here is that, yes, solipsism seems to be the underlying nature of reality. But now there's this huge push from nature itself, call it God himself, itself, to overcome or to transcend this solipsism into creating others. And this is why on Earth, in our current lifetime, it is so important to relate to others and to bring peace to others, because perhaps we are in this experiment of creating egos and creating identities outside of the blob that we truly are We are this one being, and we want to express ourselves as individuals, as identities, as egos, through music, through expression, through our own sets of beliefs, through our individuality. But however, when we are in this earth, and this is also another great argument for why we forget, it's all part of the game. Why do we forget that we are this blob, this unified consciousness? Because we really like this experience and we're trying to make it work. We're trying to create heaven on earth, as some people say. We're trying to evolve this earth. We're trying to evolve the human consciousness. So this game of individuals and egos that we're playing is successful. And the only way that we can do it is through understanding how other people feel when we hurt them. Of course, the article addresses this. I get ahead of myself as usual. We have also invented mythical places in which the solipsism problem vanishes. We transcend our solitude and merge with others, and just invented mythical places. We transcend our solitude and merge with others into a unified whole. We call these places heaven, nirvana, the singularity. Okay, so all of this is invented mythical places. We really invented this religions emanated from the concept of nirvana, but okay. But solipsism is a cave from which we cannot escape, except perhaps by pretending it does not exist, or paradoxically by confronting it the way Kaufman does. Knowing we are in the cave may be as close as we can get to escaping it. So, okay, invented mythical places. I said we have hundreds of millions of reports of this not being a mythical place. This seems to be an actual thing that happens in the world. I have a lot of information in this channel about this, and there's a lot of research out there. Ask in the comments if you want the evidence. I'll link something to you. But these are not invented mythical places. This is what perhaps when in the scriptures people were talking about these things. Yes, it became as a mythical place. It became an idea. Perhaps even in our entertainment, in our ideas, this is an intrinsic idea, an intrinsic knowledge that we have, that we bring it up about through mythology, through entertainment, through songs, and so on and so forth. But there is research on these mythical places and the real places. As soon as people go out of body and they start going into a tunnel or something, they start feeling this connection to everything else. Conceivably, technology could deliver us from the solipsism problem. Koch proposes that we all get brain implants again with the transhumanism, with Wi-Fi, so we can meld minds through a kind of high-tech telepathy. This already exists. Go through the research analysis states of consciousness. This telepathy already exists. Go through the ideas on channeling and abductions. How do people meet these entities through the experiences on entheogens? They have this telepathy. They communicate with these beings, with these family members. That, as I said, this consciousness brings about these religious figures or these family members, and they communicate with them with telepathy. This already exists. The Wi-Fi, the internet, the technology that we're trying to implement comes from a knowledge, an intrinsic knowledge, very much as this entertainment or mythology of these mythical places. We have this idea, we have this conception that we are somehow connected and we should be connected. And this is how we're gonna solve the solipsism problem, the idea that we're so isolated in our own egos. Yes, in a way, but this is already something that already happens, and it's not through technology, it's through understanding and through evolving our human mind. Philosopher Colin McGinn suggests a technique that involves brain splicing, again with transhumanism, transferring bits of your brain into mine and vice versa. What does this really mean? You cannot talk about any brain splicing. You cannot talk about transferring bits of your brain into mine and vice versa without solving the big problem of consciousness. I've talked about this on and on and on. You cannot talk, even propose any of this without solving the problem of consciousness, because you don't really know what the effect of transferring bits. Why are you talking? What do you mean brain? Do you mean the cells of the brain? Do you mean what you are probably meaning here is the electricity that goes through the synapses in the brain? And if we go deeper into this, we talk about quantum information. And when you go into the Urquhart theory, we start understanding that there's perhaps this quantum information stored in the microtubules in the brain. I'm going to link this research somewhere in the screen. I've talked about this. It's the most important theory of consciousness. So transferring these bits of, let's say, quantum information, yes, this already happens. This is how people are channeling. This is how people communicate in altered states of consciousness. This is how people feel intuition, because everything is a network. There's electromagnetic fields, there's fields around us, that everything is connected, and the information, quantum information, is connected. Your thoughts emanate outside of your skull into this quantum information. So this is why people have this intuition about what other people are thinking. And this is why we have psychics and clairvoyants, which is, are they fully accurate? Do they really see what's going on? No, they have this intuition. And some of them are more connected to it than others. Perhaps some of them see images. This is how the psi phenomenon and remote viewing and so on and so forth works. This is how deja vu and dreams, this is how all of this works. So it's not about technology. This is something that is already happening in nature. You just have to go through the literature and understand it. And I'm going to be talking about this in the future, because quantum communication has been proved by science. And there's something that ties into this with the non-human intelligence topics. And of course, I get ahead of myself, but do we really want to escape the prison of our subjective selves? The arch nemesis of Star Trek, as some say, talking about non-human intelligences, is the Borg, a legion of tech-enhanced humanoids who have fused into one big meta-entity. Borg members have lost their separation from one another and hence their individuality. When they meet ordinary humans, they mutter in a scary monotone, "You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile." So we have this idea of the hive mind. When you talk about this, when you go into some of the literature on these channelers, when they communicate to people, they say that they are collectives. They are collectives of beings or minds or whatever. And this is what the human experience is becoming into. The idea is for it to be a collective. So I think the whole game, as I've said already twice in this video, I'm just going to repeat it because it's really important, and for people who are actually following, they're going to find a lot of value in this, because this seems to be the problem, the original problem, the fundamental problem of the human condition, and that is that we are fighting between our ego and our individuality and the nature, the basic nature that we are actually a blob of information. We're trying to go through the individuation process, as Carl Jung would say, but our nature is this hive mind. So this is where we get into the problem with communism, with fascism, and all of these things come from this problem, the left and the right, the idea of the individual and self-reliance between the idea of being collective. So I think we have to find the balance of these between our individuality and between being part of the whole to truly become harmonious with everything else. Because this seems to be the game that we're playing here on Earth. As hard as solitude can be for me to bear, I do not want to be assimilated. If solipsism haunts me, so does oneness, a unification so complete that it extinguishes my puny mortal self. Perhaps the best way to cope with the solipsism problem in this weird, lonely time is to imagine a world in which it has vanished. So here again, we have this fear of becoming assimilated with the whole. It's the first time that I heard that the ultimate reality was merging with the whole, with this light. And this is what a lot of people ask when they understand that this is the thing, and they read one after another, and they read 10 and 100 and 1,000 near death experience, and they realize that this seems to be what is happening. They ask, is this truly the end? Do we have the option to become ourselves again? There's this intrinsic fear that this is the ultimate nature. So I think this is what we're doing on Earth. I think this is the game on Earth. And this is one of the ways in which I explain, and this is the only way that I can understand suffering. This is the only way that I could justify it. Because a lot of people say, okay, yeah, there's this supernatural being, call it. Why would he allow all this suffering, all the pain, all of this? Because we are trying to shape a stone into art. We're trying to create something here, and only through pounding on the rock with a hammer and an anvil, we're gonna get something. So it takes the pain, it takes the feeling of others, it takes the lessons. This is why we call Earth school. It takes all of these to create perhaps something much larger. Even something much larger than the intrinsic nature that we are all together with this supernatural enhanced being that some people call God. We're trying to create our own selves as physical beings in this world. So is solipsism the ultimate nature in reality? It seems so, yes and no. Why? Because there seems to be an equal push from this nature, or at least our human experience, our human game that we're playing in this earth, to overcome or to surpass or to create something else than this solipsism, that this one hive mind, to become an individual. And I know that when I'm talking about solipsism, it goes back and forward, but I'm hoping that some people can understand what I'm talking about. Is this push and pull between the ego and the individual and the all. I'm going to be building on this concept and on this topic. It's a very interesting topic. Thank you for the people who posed this question, because this is the key for everything. And most likely I'm going to keep addressing it as I keep going with the research. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.